The human call for help went unanswered, echoing through the cold, uncaring void of space forever. At least it would have, if not for a chance encounter light years from Earth that changed the course of galactic history forever. Walter Murray was used to disappointment. As Endeavor's top xenobiologist, he had spent his whole career searching for signs of extraterrestrial life. But in the centuries since humanity had taken to the stars, spreading colonies across hundreds of star systems, not a single alien civilization had been found. It was as if humans were cosmically alone, the sole spark of sentience in a barren, lifeless universe. Until the day a faint distress beacon led Endeavor to a remote, uncharted world on the fringes of known space. There they discovered the mangled wreckage of an alien starship, strewn across kilometers of desolate landscape. Amazingly, the ship's pilot had survived the catastrophic crash landing. Its name was Umbra, and it was a Denobulan, the last survivor of an ancient spacefaring race. Sequestered in a secure lab, Walter spent months secretly teaching the alien to speak English and piecing together the tragic history of its lost civilization from the fractured tales it recounted. Hundreds of millennia ago, the Denobulans had been a galactic superpower of incredible might and technological prowess, but they had been undone by a fanatical death cult known as the Imperium, which sought the eradication of all other sentient life. Unleashing an ancient bioweapon from a long-vanished precursor species, the Imperium had reduced the Denobulan homeworld to ashes, purging their kind from the stars. As the full extent of the looming threat became clear, Walter faced an impossible choice. Umbra pleaded with the humans to take up arms against the Imperium, warning that the cult would not rest until the galaxy lay cleansed of all other life forms. But standing against the Zealots risked provoking a devastating war with the same enemy that had annihilated the once mighty Denobulans. When an Imperium dreadnought ambushed Endeavor, Walter had to decide: surrender the alien to its would-be executioners, or defend humanity's first extraterrestrial contact. With Endeavor fleeing from the technologically superior warship, its survival, and perhaps that of the entire human race, rested on unlocking the secrets Umbra held to the Denobulans' lost power. Because if those mysteries died with the alien, so too might any hope for humanity's future among the uncaring stars. The stakes had never been higher. This fateful first contact would either propel mankind to its ultimate ascension, or to its eternal doom. Walter burst onto the Endeavor's bridge, his face flushed and eyes wide. "Captain, we have to trust Umbra. The Denobulans may be our only hope against the Imperium." Captain Nara Patel eyed Walter skeptically. "You're asking me to risk everything on the word of an alien we barely know." "I know it's a leap of faith, but Umbra's people fought the Imperium before. If there's even a chance they can help us, we have to take it." Nara pressed her lips into a thin line, then nodded. "All right, Walter, we'll follow Umbra's coordinates. But if this is a trap—" "It's not. I stake my life on it." Walter met her gaze unflinchingly. The Endeavor sliced through the void, hurtling towards the hidden Denobulan outpost. As they dropped out of warp, a derelict space station loomed before them, dark and lifeless. "Scans show no signs of activity," the ops officer reported. "It appears abandoned." Walter's heart sank, but Umbra pointed to the view screen. "There, an intact docking bay. We must search inside." They boarded the eerie husk of the outpost, footsteps echoing through empty halls. In the armory, Umbra kicked open a sealed vault, revealing racks of sleek alien weapons. "Neurolasers, plasma cannons, singularity mines," Umbra said, running his hands over the arsenal. "With these, we may yet stand a chance." For the next grueling hours, Umbra drilled Walter and a hand-picked team of human soldiers in the use of the exotic arms. Sweat ran in rivulets as they practiced, unused to the heft and recoil of Denobulan guns. Alarms blared, cutting the training short. "Captain, the Imperium dreadnought just dropped out of warp," Ops shouted over the comm. "They're launching fighters and boarding craft." Walter swore, grabbing a plasma rifle. "Everyone to the barricades. This is it. We hold the line here." The dreadnought's first salvo shook the outpost, the din of straining metal filling the air. soldiers scrambled to defensive positions as the hangar bay doors exploded inward. Hordes of Imperium troopers surged through the breach, only to be met by a storm of emerald and crimson fire as the defenders opened up with neurolasers and plasma cannons. Singularity mines imploded, ripping legions of zealots into oblivion. Yet for every foe felled, 3 more rushed to take their place, heedless of loss. Walter and Umbra fought back to back, blasting cultists apart at point blank. But the Imperium's numbers were inexorable. "We can't hold them," Walter panted, plasma scoring his armor. "We have to disable that dreadnought at the source." "The reactor core," Umbra agreed. "A well-placed singularity mine will destabilize it, but reaching it will be almost impossible." Walter thumbed his rifle to max power. "I'll take that chance." He keyed his comm. "Captain, I need an assault shuttle prepped for boarding. It's time to take this fight to them." As the Endeavor's shuttle rocketed toward the looming dreadnought, Imperium point defense guns filled the void with flak. The small craft jinked and wove, armor buckling under the onslaught. 30 seconds to breach point," the pilot shouted, struggling to hold course. The hull screamed as a near miss boiled away the ablative shielding. With a bone-jarring crash, the shuttle slammed into the dreadnought's flank. The boarding party stormed out, cutting down the first Imperium responders in a hail of plasma bolts. Walter consulted his suit's schematic of the ship. "Reactor chamber is 10 decks down, Section 5. Move out." They blasted and hacked their way through the twisting corridors of the monstrosity, leaving a trail of ruptured bulkheads and scorched corpses. Every meter was bought with blood against the tide of defenders. At last they burst into the cavernous reactor chamber, a seething ball of barely restrained antimatter caged at its center. But there, blocking the walkway, stood a towering figure clad in ornate armor, flanked by the biggest warriors they'd yet seen. Pathetic mammals," the Imperium commander sneered, energy glaive igniting in his fists. "You sully this ship with your presence. Prepare to be expunged." Walter raised his rifle, but Umbra pushed past him, crystalline sword flashing. "Get to the reactor. I will deal with this filth." The 2 aliens became a blur of whirling blades, moving faster than the eye could follow. Walter and his team surged forward, blasting the guard aside in a tsunami of fire. They fought to the reactor's control panel, singularity mines primed, but the Imperium commander saw their intent. With a roar, he smashed Umbra aside and charged, glaive a cyclone of destruction. Walter desperately fired, the plasma bolts splashing uselessly against the commander's armor. The alien seized him by the throat, slamming him against the reactor housing. "Now you die, ape," he growled, glaive raised for the killing blow. But Umbra lunged from the floor, his sword ramming through the commander's back in a spray of blood. "Set the mines and go!" Umbra yelled as he dragged the commander away, locked in mortal combat. Walter armed the explosives and sprinted for the exit, his team close on his heels. They barely made it to their shuttle before the detonations began, the dreadnought rupturing like a rotten fruit as they blasted free. Battered and bloody, they docked with Endeavor to a hero's welcome. But the celebration was short-lived as the comm officer approached, face grim. "Captain, we're picking up wideband transmissions. The Imperium, they found Earth. They're amassing an invasion fleet in the Corax Nebula. Hundreds of ships." Walter's knees went weak, Umbra's hand the only thing keeping him standing. "No, we're too late." "Not yet," Umbra said. "There is still one chance, but it will be our most desperate mission yet." Walter's voice crackled over the comms. "This is it. Our one shot to turn the tide." The ragtag fleet of human and denobulan ships dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Neritas system. Tension filled the bridge as they approached the once mighty denobulan homeworld. "Scanners picking up Imperium patrols," the tactical officer reported. "Minimal activity. They're not expecting us." Captain Patel nodded grimly. "Engage stealth systems. Let's hope Umbra's intel holds up." They slipped past the outer defenses, breath held. As Neritas came into view, gasps echoed across the bridge. The planet's surface was a scarred wasteland, great craters marking where proud cities once stood. "My God," Walter whispered, "it's all gone." Umbra's face hardened. "Not all, look there." A faint energy reading pulsed from beneath the ruins of the capital. Hope flickered to life. "Prep assault shuttles," Patel ordered. "We're going in." Walter and Umbra led the away team through the shattered streets. Twisted metal and rubble crunched underfoot. An Imperium patrol rounded a corner. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air. "Take cover!" Walter dove behind a fallen pillar, returning fire. The skirmish was brief, but fierce. As the last cultist fell, Umbra gestured urgently. "This way, the signal's stronger." They found the bunker entrance hidden beneath debris. Inside, haggard survivors stared in disbelief. "Umbra," a wizened Denobulan stepped forward. "After all this time..." "Growlus," Umbra clasped his mentor's arm. "We need the weapon." Hope turned to ash as Growlus explained the superweapon's destruction. But when he played the High Council's message, tenacity reignited. "We split up," Walter said. "Hit all the vault sites at once." Umbra nodded. "May fortune favor the bold." The retrieval squads fanned out across the ruined city. Walter's team fought block by block, dodging Imperium patrols and automated defenses. They reached their vault, only to find it guarded by a platoon of zealots. A vicious firefight erupted. Walter watched in horror as his soldiers fell one by one. Bleeding and battered, they finally secured the vault component. The other teams reported similar struggles, but success. As Walter's squad limped back to the bunker, alarms blared. The sky filled with Imperium warships, their stealth fields dropping away. "It's a trap!" Umbra shouted over the comms. "They knew we were coming." Panic gripped Walter as he realized the full scope of their predicament. No escape, no reinforcements, just the components of an ancient weapon and a prayer. In orbit, the meager Allied fleet engaged the Imperium Armada. On the ground, Walter and Umbra raced to reassemble the superweapon as the sounds of battle drew ever closer. "We're out of time," Walter said, hands shaking as he connected power couplings. "It's now or never." Umbra's eyes met his. "Then let it be now, my friend, for all our sakes." The Imperium Armada loomed over Neridus, a swarm of metal and malice blotting out the stars. Inside the resistance bunker, Walter's fingers flew over alien control panels, sweat beading on his brow as he integrated the recovered superweapon components. "Flux capacitor aligned," he called out, voice strained. "Growlus, I need the primary ignition sequence." The grizzled Denobulan wardmaster limped to Walter's side, tapping out a complex series of commands. "There, but the power couplings are unstable. We may only get one shot at this." Above them, the bunker shook as Umbra led the defense against Imperium ground forces. The staccato of plasma fire and the screams of the wounded filtered through the reinforced walls. In orbit, Captain Patel's voice crackled over the comms. "Walter, we can't hold them much longer. Half our ships are gone and their numbers keep growing." Walter gritted his teeth, focusing on the task at hand. Hours crawled by as they worked, each minute bought with blood. Finally, the last component clicked into place. Walter stepped back, a fierce grin on his face. "It's done." But before they could celebrate, alarms blared. A tactical officer's panicked voice cut through the noise. "Massive energy signature detected. It's an extinction-class purger." The enormous dreadnought broke through the fleet's defensive line, its weapons already charging. The first barrage hit like the fist of an angry god, shaking the bunker to its foundations. "The core!" Growlus shouted. "It's destabilizing!" Walter's mind raced. There was only one option left. "We have to overload it. Trigger a manual detonation right next to that monster." Umbra burst into the room, armor scorched and bleeding from a dozen wounds. "The Imperium forces are almost through. We can't hold them back any longer." Walter met his alien friend's eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. Umbra nodded grimly and turned to rally the remaining fighters. As Walter and Growlus worked feverishly to rig the unstable weapon, the sounds of battle grew closer. The bunker's outer defenses fell one by one. "It's ready," Walter said, his voice hoarse, "but someone needs to stay behind to trigger it." Growlus placed a hand on Walter's shoulder. "Then let it be me, my friend. You've given us hope. Now go. Ensure our sacrifice isn't in vain." They embraced, brothers in all but blood. Walter's eyes burned as he turned away, racing for the emergency shuttle bay. Outside, Umbra stood alone against a tide of Imperium zealots, his crystalline sword a blur of light. "Go!" he roared, holding the line one last time. Walter launched the shuttle just as the Purger's shadow fell over the bunker. He watched through tear-blurred eyes as Growlus activated the weapon. For a moment, the world went white. The antimatter cascade tore through the Purger's hull, ripping the mighty ship apart. The shockwave consumed Neritus, erasing all trace of the valiant last stand. As the human Denobulan fleet regrouped, a single battered shuttle emerged from the inferno. Walter, somehow alive, guided the craft towards the nearest friendly ship. But amid the debris field, sensors picked up something unexpected, an archaic energy signature, growing stronger by the second. The Purger was destroyed, but something ancient and terrible had awakened in its place. Walter's battered shuttle drifted among the debris field, his sensors screaming warnings. The archaic energy signature pulsed, growing stronger with each passing moment. His blood ran cold as he recognized the pattern, the same exotic particles that had fueled the Imperium's bioweapon. "No, no, no," he muttered, fingers flying across the control panel. "This can't be happening." But the readings didn't lie. The antimatter detonation hadn't just destroyed the Purger. It had reawakened something far worse. Walter stabbed at the comm unit. "All ships, this is Walter. You need to get out of here now. The weapon, it's active again." Static crackled through the speakers. He tried again, desperation clawing at his throat. "Captain Patel, do you copy? We've triggered a resonance cascade. You have to—" The comm died mid-sentence, overwhelmed by electromagnetic interference. Walter watched in horror as the nearest cruiser's hull began to shimmer, a crystalline structure spreading across its surface like frost on a window. Inside the afflicted ships, chaos erupted. Crewmen screamed as control panels sparked and shorted out. Life support systems failed, leaving them gasping for air. Reactor cores destabilized, their containment fields collapsing under the onslaught of exotic particles. A frigate to Walter's left shuddered, its hull fracturing along impossible geometric lines. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion, scattering razor-sharp shards of duranium into the void. On Neritus's ravaged surface, Growlus rallied the last of the Denobulan fighters. They fought with the desperate fury of those who knew they were already dead, facing off against Imperium soldiers twisted into monstrous crystalline forms. "Hold the line!" Growlus roared, his voice hoarse from the acrid smoke. "Give our people a chance to escape!" He ducked under the swing of a mutated Purger, its arm now a jagged blade of living crystal. Growlus drove his vibroblade up through the creature's chest, shattering it into 1,000 glittering pieces. But for every abomination they felled, 2 more took its place. The Denobulans fought on, buying precious seconds with their lives. Walter's shuttle rocked violently as the wave of destruction spread. Warning klaxons blared as system after system failed. He frantically tried to plot a course away from the infested zone, but the navigational computer was dead. A blinding flash erupted from Neritus as the resonance cascade reached critical mass. The shockwave slammed into Walter's shuttle, sending it tumbling end over end into the depths of space. When the spots cleared from his vision, Walter found himself drifting alone in an empty void. The fleet was gone. Fled or destroyed, he couldn't tell. His life support systems flickered weakly, and the FTL drive was a useless hunk of metal. Days stretched into weeks as Walter rationed his dwindling supplies. He recorded what he had seen, preserving the terrible truth of what they had unleashed. As consciousness faded, his last thoughts were of Umbra and the terrible price of their resistance. Years passed in the cold embrace of space before automated probes stumbled upon Walter's derelict shuttle. They towed him back to a distant human outpost, where advanced medical technology restored his aged body. Walter emerged from cryosleep to a galaxy forever changed. The Denobulan civilization was gone, consumed by the very weapon they had sought to use against their enemies. Humanity stood alone, the last bastion of sentient life in a sterile universe. Haunted by the weight of his actions, Walter spent his remaining years as a voice of caution. He urged humanity to turn inward, to build strength through isolation, rather than risk awakening the horror that lurked between the stars. In the final pages of his memoirs, Walter recounted the intercepted Imperium transmissions from that fateful day. The fanatical cult warriors, who had sought to purge all life from the galaxy, fleeing in terror from the unstoppable force they had created. "We succeeded in stopping the Imperium," Walter wrote, his hand trembling. "But the cost was beyond measure. Umbra's sacrifice, the billions of lives lost, all of it pales before the desolation we have wrought upon the cosmos." He set down his pen, staring out at the empty night sky. The silence of dead stars weighed upon him.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.